Because the Windows desktop is actually the virtual version of what should be your own personal desk desktop, we want to make sure that you know how to make it yours. In other words, how to personalize it. So let's take just a few minutes to take a look at just some of the ways that you can personalize Windows. I'm going to start by moving down to the old system tray. Now remember that this is going to be different on Windows 7 than it is on Windows Vista or XP. One of the things that's different is how I customize it. So in Windows 7, if I want to see my clock, I'm going to click this little up arrow, and then I'm going to click the Customize link. This allows me to customize the system tray, which is something that you can't really do a lot of in the prior versions of Windows. But one of the links that I have here is the one to turn system icons on or off. And when I click that link, you'll see at the very top that currently my clock is turned off. Now I like to be honest with you. When we're recording videos, like the one that you're seeing, it takes us a lot longer to actually shoot the videos than the final edited product that you see. So, in most CBT trainings, the clocks are turned off, simply so you don't see the jumps back and forth in time. For this demonstration, though, I need to turn the clock on. So I'm going to click the drop down, turn it on, come to the bottom, and click OK. If you're using Vista, right-click and select Properties. Then you can turn on the clock using a checkbox on the Notifications tab. For Windows XP, again you'd right-click and choose Properties, but then there's going to be a Show the Clock checkbox on the Taskbar tab. That brings me back to the original screen, and I'll say OK once again to close us out. Now this should be where all of the XP and Vista people already were, except in Windows 7 you not only get to see the time, but you also get to see the date. I think that's a great feature. In XP and Vista, if you want to see the date, you can pause over it and that will actually show you the date. But in Windows 7, it shows both of them without having to move over it. The reason I brought this up is because I wanted to show you how to adjust your time. I'm going to move down over the clock and I'm going to give it a single left click. This gives you a calendar and it also gives you a clock that you can look at. If I want to change the settings, I can click the link that says Change Date and Time Settings. Changing the clock settings works the same way on Vista, but if you're using Windows XP, you'll need to right-click the clock, choose Adjust Date and Time, and make the adjustments on either the Date and Time or the Time Zones tabs. The first thing you need to do is look at your date and time and make sure it's correct. If it's not, you can click the button that says Change Date and Time. When you do so, it will bring up another box that allows you to simply click on the calendar to designate the appropriate date and time, as well as clicking in the clock and using the up and down arrows or typing a new number to change your time. That's all there is to setting this particular feature. Then you can say OK. If you need to change your time zone, you click the Change Time Zone button and you select the appropriate time zone from the drop-down. Now every time zone in the world is listed here, so hopefully you don't get lost in the list. As you move up, it actually is moving west. So by that I mean, if we currently had it set for Eastern and I wanted to go to Pacific, I have to go up in the list to find things like Mountain and the Pacific time zone, as well as Arizona. It's kind of interesting to look through the list, but what's most important is that you select your time zone. That way, any files that you create, any emails that you send, will be properly time-stamped. You will also notice that there's a checkbox that asks if you want to automatically adjust for daylight savings time. If you live in an area that recognizes daylight savings time, I recommend this. That way, when you wake up anytime after 12:01 on the Sunday it changes, your computer will have already updated and it's one less clock you have to change in your house. Once that's set, you again can say OK. When all of those are set up correctly, you say OK again, and then your time and date should be appropriately set. Knowing the correct time and date is very important, especially for me, because I can start working at any time of the day or night, and if I'm not careful, I completely lose track of what time it actually is. But it's not exactly the most fun thing we can do, and now I want to show you a couple of fun things. Primarily, how do I change the picture on my desktop, otherwise known as the wallpaper in prior versions, and also how do I change my screensaver and what is a screensaver. So let's have you right-click on any blank part of your desktop and choose Personalize. This window again will look different if you're on XP or Vista, but it basically should have the same options available to you somewhere. I want to go all the way to the bottom in Windows 7 and to do a single click where it says Desktop Background. In Windows 7, they call it the desktop background. In prior versions, they called it a wallpaper. These are the same things. What you will find, though, is that in the last couple versions of Windows, they have gotten very, very elegant with what you can use as a wallpaper or a background. You actually can have full color pictures. To change this, you need to somehow find a new picture. One option is to use the drop-down where it says Picture Location and to choose some of the options that Windows has built in. For example, I can just choose Windows Desktop Backgrounds, and then I can scroll through the list. They have categories of architecture, different characters, we can do landscapes, we can find pictures of nature, some scenes, pictures of the United States, and so forth. So for now, I'm just going to pick one that I like, maybe this one of an arch in the desert. And you can notice in the background that that has been selected. That's all there is to it. I click on Save Changes, and that's going to take me back to my original window. Now before we actually take a look at that, I want you to also change your screensaver. In Windows 7, I can click on the screensaver entry, or in Vista, I can go to that search and type in screensaver, or I can go to Control Panel, like in Windows XP, and double-click the screensaver option. I'll go ahead and give that a click. The purpose of a screensaver is actually somewhat outdated. With old monitors, if you left something on the screen for an extended period of time, it would create something called screen burn, where you actually saw a ghosted image of whatever was left up there for the life of the computer. It basically ruined your monitor. That hasn't been true for several years. Current monitors actually let the little pixels in the monitor adjust so that you don't get screen burn. But the fact is, people just like having screensavers. So we'll show you how to go ahead and set one up. A screensaver is something that comes up on your monitor after your monitor or your computer sit unused for a certain amount of time. And it has some kind of a pattern or thing that's going to happen that changes the screen in the old days so it didn't get screen burn. Today, it's just because it's kind of fun. So let's see how we can work with these settings. Regardless of your Windows version, how you set up a screensaver is exactly the same, even though the exact options may be a little bit different. You're going to start by using the drop-down where it says Screensaver. Currently mine says None. You can choose from text, blank, bubbles, something called Mystify. You can do a photo slideshow. You can do something called Ribbons. And as I said, you may have different options with older operating systems like Pipes or Star Fields. I'm going to choose Ribbons. What I can now see is a sample of what this will do on my screen. Every screensaver has settings that you can use, so I'm going to click on that. And there are no options for this particular one, so I'll say OK. If you would have chosen 3D text and open settings, there you would have been able to type in the text that you actually want to see. For example, I could put Aaron's computer and have that text scroll around on the screen as my screensaver. If you ever want to see how the screensaver is going to look, you can press or click the preview button and then don't touch your mouse. This is going to bring up the screensaver actually full screen. Once you're done looking at it, just wiggle your mouse and it will bring you back to the dialog box that you are using. After you choose the actual screensaver, then you should choose how long you want the computer to wait before the screensaver comes on. 1 minute is ridiculously short because it can be irritating if you turn around to pick up a pencil and by the time you turn back around, your screensavers come up. I recommend something like 15 or maybe even 30 minutes. I'll go ahead and just click on the up arrow and set mine for 15 minutes. If, for security purposes, your screensaver comes up, and instead of just being able to wiggle the mouse, you want to have to log back onto the computer, you can check the box that says On Resume, display the logon screen. That way, if you get called away from your desk at work and your screensaver comes up, somebody can't simply walk by your computer, move your mouse, and see the files that you're working on. Once you get these set the way that you want, you can simply click OK, And then you can get out of the box you're in by clicking on the red X in my case. And at this point, we can see my beautiful wallpaper or desktop background that has changed. And I also know that if I don't touch my computer for 15 minutes, my screensaver will come up. These are simply ways of making the computer feel like your own. Both the desktop wallpaper and the screensaver are things that really have nothing to do with the functionality of the computer. They really are just things to make you feel a little bit more like the computer